Yes, Netflix and chilling.
Son of a. I was wondering if that'd get you guys' attention. Oh, you just look like, what?
I can't find my pen.
Yay, I have a second screen and I could actually see whatever the hell it is that John has in the background. All right.
What?
Just looking at your background there.
My music video.
So let's see, we're having a test on Wednesday. 1 through 3, chapters 1 through 3. I mean, not much from 1. So basically it's at chapters 2 and 3 for the most part. We kind of got cut off at the very end of 3, but we'll hit that on we'll do some review like on Monday. Maybe even Tuesday, because we have a Zoom on Tuesday as well. So we could do some review. Anything that I didn't quite hit in the chapter, you know, we could hit again on review. Today I was thinking of doing, and sorry, I've got home a little late, and then I've been having some connectivity issues with my Wi-Fi. I'm not really sure what's going on there. So let me pull up. Wait, it should already be here. There it is, PowerPoint. Echogenicity. There we go. Cool. All right. Let me share.
Mr. S, while you're doing that, I'm being nosy. Is that your actual porch, or is that just like a screen thing?
Like above me?
Yes.
They're
That's actually really pretty.
they're not kivas. They're basically beams that are, you know, they're supposed to hold up the roof. I think they don't really hold up my roof, but so this is actually like right off my kitchen actually. So
That's really pretty. Sorry, I'm just being nosy because I was like,
that's all right.
Papers on, and I'm like, oh, that's beautiful, and then I'm like, man, how do I figure?
Okay, now shoot, my controls are over here on my other screen. Okay, well, we're recording already. I need share screen. So what we're going to do today, rather than, there's so many things at the beginning of a semester that you guys need to understand. And it's hard because you start teaching out of this, and then I start running into going down rabbit holes. And I'm like, oh, I can't talk about this because we haven't even given the students a background. So today, I want to spend some time doing a little bit of background. So rather than go into chapter 4, we're going to start talking about some of the terminology we use. Probably won't take the whole time, but let's go ahead. So let me share my screen. And so we speak in terms of you're saying the word echogenicity in front of you, right? I am sharing the correct screen.
Yeah,
Yep.
echo something. Yeah.
Yes.
Echo something, yeah. Okay, cool. In other words, a PowerPoint. So slideshow from current slide. Okay. So okay, well, it is what it is. I'm sure you're getting the correct screen. Okay. So everything we do is an echo. Just like a dolphin uses echolocation, a bat uses echolocation. The submarine uses echolocation. Spaceballs. If you've ever watched Spaceballs, you'll know what I'm talking about. They used echolocation. Anyway,
And
you know,
bats.
if you don't know what I'm talking about, you just think I'm losing my mind. Okay. So we speak in terms of echogenicity, and that's what we see on our screen is different strengths of echoes. And just occurred to me, I don't know. There we go. So the first one we'll talk about it is anechoic. There's another term, sonolucent, used a little bit more like in other countries, other English-speaking countries like England and such, I think. But sonolucent's used in this country as well, so it gets a little confusing. So anechoic and sonolucent mean the same thing. An is, of course, without. Now we have some words that are absolute values and some that are a little more degrees. Anechoic is one of those that's an absolute value. I'm going to try to start speaking a little more quietly. I keep forgetting my daughter's in the other room. Anechoic is an absolute value. We only use that for one meaning, and that is black on the screen. There is nothing on the screen more black than anechoic. So I thought there were interesting. Okay. I thought there were I thought I had a picture with this, but I guess I didn't. So when we're looking at our screen and something is black, and I mean black, 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 jet black, not just darker than the rest, but jet black on the screen, it is anechoic. It is actually without echoes. So there are certain things, blood usually, fluid, like a urinary bladder or a cyst, is often absolutely black in the fluid because there are no echoes coming back from there. So anechoic is black. Hypoechoic, so echoic, so the hypoecho. Hypo means under or slight. So if something on the screen is dark, then it is, but not necessarily perfectly black, it is hypoechoic. All right, I need to shut down and figure out something. There's images. Slideshow options. Oh, I can't stand having all these multiple things open at the same time. I'll just escape. Oh yeah, I could see from here. Okay, you know what? Let me just shut this. What is this called again? Echogenicity terms. I have to shut this down. And hopefully when I open this back up again. Oh, I understand why. I understand what happened here. This is all on a hard drive. Hopefully you guys, yeah, you can still hear me. This is on a hard drive, and the hard drive is currently oops. Okay, now when I open this up again, oops, Echogenicity. Did I spell that correctly? I think so. did I do wrong? Second semester. Echo, Gen. Oh, I see. I did spell echogenicity wrong. I forgot the city in echogenicity. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. Oh, this is so much nicer. I probably have to reshare this. PowerPoint, share, slideshow. I'll just start from the beginning. Okay. Now, this is so much nicer. Okay, so you guys are seeing this image, right? With like one of the ultrasound pictures has bladder on it.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank Lord. Okay. So once again, we'll start back with anechoic. This happens to be a cow, but it's an ovarian cyst on a cow, interestingly enough. But for the most part, except for just a little bit of noise up here, this is perfectly black. Over here, this is a human bladder, and yes, bladders are surprisingly square, perfectly black. That is anechoic. And here is a beautiful carotid. We did some carotids today, and really none of them looked like this because, well, we need to do some work on it, but also this is just plain lucky to have such a beautiful carotid. So the fluid, the blood in here is anechoic, perfectly black on the screen. Anechoic is an absolute value. There is nothing blacker than anechoic. Hypoechoic, meaning under or slight, that's a relative term. So now relative to what? So hypoechoic is absolute. It's just black and that's it. Hypoechoic is less echoic. And when I say that, that means less echoes returning to the transducer. What does that mean? Well, some tissues just simply reflect more than others. And that tells us a lot about what the tissue is made of and such. So on the left-hand side of the screen, these are hemorrhagic cysts of the ovary with coexisting chocolate cyst. And yes, it is called a chocolate cyst because when you pull this out, when you resect it and you slice it open, it looks like milk chocolate. So and both of these look pretty similar, of course, but you know there's slight differences. And this one over here on, I assume you guys can see my my cursor. This one over here, that's a hemorrhagic cyst, and this is a chocolate cyst. But both of these are pretty dark on the screen. They're darker than all the surrounding tissue for sure, but they're not perfectly black. They have stuff in them. This is not noise in this case. This happens to be over here. This happens to be a hemorrhage, and blood is starting to coagulate. So basically, this is a blood clot inside of a cyst. On this one, it's actually similar. This too is blood, but it's a little bit different form rather than a clot. So hypoechoic, but not anechoic because there are echoes coming from it. Over on this side, this happens to be a kind of an unhealthy liver. It's a little bit too bright on the screen, but there's an area inside imaged or indicated by this yellow arrow that is darker than the surrounding tissue. Now, it's not exactly that dark. It's not exactly black. But it is darker than the tissue next to it. So it is hypoechoic relative to the rest of the liver. Yeah, I'll state it. So relative term, what are you comparing it to? Again, hypoechoic, not very dark, but darker than the rest, or can be very dark with some echoes. So when we say hypoechoic, we could be talking about something that's almost anechoic, really close to anechoic, but not quite there. And so that's one term for hypoechoic, or one meaning of hypoechoic, or simply a relative term like that last picture. This isn't the darkest thing you're going to see on ultrasound, but compared to the liver, the rest of the liver, it is a little bit darker. So it could be very dark, it could be not so dark, but darker than everything else. Okay, hypoechoic can describe a wide range of echogenicities as a relative term, is as compared to surrounding tissue, or it could be close to anechoic, but not quite. All right. Oh, and let's look, what is this? I'm not 100% sure what this is. It looks like a cyst with a lot of stuff on the inside of it. But it does not matter. Okay. Opposite end of the spectrum. Echogenic, also called hyperechoic. Once again, those two words are totally no, they are interchangeable. They do have slightly different meanings, so I got to be careful how I say that. They can mean the same thing, but they also can mean slightly different things. Let me tell you why. Echogenic. Genic means form in Latin, I assume. So echo forming meaning very, like a lot of echoes are returning. This kidney, this is an unusual kidney. They don't normally look like this. It has an echogenic center to it. Over on this side, we have a gallbladder. The fluid of the gallbladder, at least in this part, is anechoic.
Kurt, sorry to interrupt you. Am I the only one not seeing the cursor? I don't know where you're pointing at.
You don't see the cursor? Okay.
No, I'm not seeing it either, but I can tell by the pictures what you're talking about.
Yeah, no. You know what? I just realized I remember when I do this, I just have to use an annotate and then spotlight. Okay. That's not working. Spotlight. There we go. Oh, I have to use it. Okay. You can see that though now, right? Probably. Okay.
Yes.
So sorry. Well, if there's anything that you guys need me to go back on because you weren't sure where I was pointing, I'm more than happy to do that. So, okay, well, cool. Now I could point, I could look at my screen like this. It's a little better actually. So this is a kidney here. This is an unusual kidney where I'm pointing to right now, here, 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 here. These are echogenic. They are pretty bright on the screen. We'll talk more about this in the future, but the reason why they're bright is because it's very reflective. Let's just put it that way. It's reflective. Over here on this side, this right here is anechoic. This fluid does not reflect at all. But here we have two stones. These are gallbladder stones. The walls, especially of these stones, the first part, are echogenic or hyperechoic. Both terms work in this situation. So echogenic meaning echo forming, hyperechoic meaning increased echoes. So both of those terms make sense here. Now, let me just, now it's killing me that you weren't able to see. That wasn't a great one. Here's the, these are both ovaries. These are two cysts actually on the same person. This is, they're both very dark, but they're not anechoic. They both have material inside of them causing echoes to occur. This liver is kind of bright. You'll learn that soon enough. Well, next semester anyway. This tumor is darker than the rest. So even though it's not very dark overall, I mean, that's not a very black tumor on the screen. It's still darker. So compared to the liver, it is hypoechoic. Okay, let's move forward. Okay.
Now, Kurt, real quick on that tumor there within the liver, is it because it's hyperechoic because of the fact that it's less dense and does not reflect the sound back the same way that a more dense material does?
Typically, dense material does form more echoes, but yeah, the second. So the first part of your supposition is probably correct. The second part is definitely correct. So the darker tumor reflects fewer echoes. So it's just like mirrors. If you have a crystal clear mirror, it reflects everything back. If you start putting layers of what are those? What's that material they put on car windows?
Tint.
Tint. Thank you. Yeah. If you put a little bit more tint on it, it's less reflective because more of the light is being absorbed. You put even more tint on, even less reflective. And eventually you put so much tint on, it's no longer a mirror, it's just a black piece of glass. And so that is, so as far as your density, yes, you're probably correct. More dense material tends to reflect more. No, actually, it's both correct and incorrect. And I cannot go into that right now because let's put it this way. Your lungs are very undense, not dense. The bones are very dense. Both of them reflect a ton of light, or a ton of sound for completely opposite ends of the spectrum. So yeah, it's not dense.
The reason why I was asking was I was trying to relate it to my schooling in diagnostic radiology, because if x-rays pass through something, it shows up black, but when it shows white, it's because they were absorbed by that area. And I was trying to relate the two.
Yeah, so there is an analogy there, but then in ultrasound, both ends of the analogy actually work. Very, very airy material, very light material, and very dense material both reflect a lot of sound. We have a whole day on that, on why that occurs. Okay, so back to this. Here we have the opposite situation. Here, the liver. This is liver again, with echogenic tumors all over it. This is metastasis. This is cancer. This person. There's a lot of trouble. Echogenic. Oh, yeah, these letters are echogenic. Yeah, so if I have a black background with the white lettering, those are echogenic. Once again, genic is form. Echogenic can be, so this one gets a little confusing. And this is why I said echogenic and hyperechoic are very similar, but not always. Echogenic can be an absolute term, just like anechoic is an absolute term, but the opposite. So echogenic is the brightest white on the screen, or it can refer to the brightest white, like down here is pretty echogenic. Those are pretty bright. Or more often, echogenic is relative. So echogenic can be both an absolute value and a relative value. So this tumor, relative to the rest of the liver, is echogenic. We could imagine a much brighter object on the screen, but relatively speaking, it is echogenic. So that's the confusing part about echogenicity. It can be the absolute term, where that it can't be any brighter because 100% of the sound is reflected, but it also more often is relative. So, okay. Isoechoic. Iso is the same. So oftentimes two different tissues like the kidney and the liver can be of the same echogenicity. So once again, this is a kidney here. And this tissue up here, we're getting a little shadowing here, so we don't see a lot of it, but this tissue right along here is liver. Now, excluding this echogenic band, excluding that, if we look at this tissue here and this tissue here, they're basically the same brightness on the screen. When they're the same, we call them isoechoic. Ooh, this next one's pretty awesome. I wrote nearly isoechoic, but man, that's pretty much isoechoic. We actually have a tumor. This is obviously not small, but a subtle tumor. Your eyes could easily miss this if you're scanning too fast, and if you're not really paying attention, you can miss this, and that would be embarrassing because that's a 5-centimeter tumor in the middle of the liver, and if you miss that, you're going to have to explain yourself. But it is pretty subtle. So some lesions can be hard to see because their echogenicity is the same or nearly the same as the surrounding tissue. That one's very hard to see.
But in that case, using the machine, can we alter the brightness or whatever to make that seem more visible?
Yeah, and so some of you guys have played around with the different colors on what's it called? The chroma map. The chroma map, you might go flick, 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 and then suddenly, bam, whatever it is, that purple color, for some reason, your eyes differentiate that much better. And so that's a situation where the chroma map might be used. The dynamic range, you can change your dynamic range. That could change, so make it a little more black and white. That might make this pop out a little bit. Your frequency can help you possibly. So yeah, there's a lot of different things, and there's also some other functions of the computer that are more just background processing could make a difference as well. So absolutely, yeah. If you suspect you see something, then you start going through all those different adjustments. Okay. Oh, so through transmission. Now, the physics behind this, you're not ready for it, and even if you are ready for it, I don't want to confuse you right now with things that you don't need to know just yet. But through transmission is the opposite of shadowing. Well, let's start with shadowing so you know what the opposite would be. Shadowing is pretty obvious. A shadow is a shadow. Stones, calcifications in, this is a gallbladder, sounds coming through, and there's a shadow here. Well, for the same reason that you cast a shadow at the end of the day when the sun's low on the horizon, it's the same reason this casts a shadow. It's a lack of information. So our shadow is a lack of sunlight. Sunlight is a wave, and physicists will say that waves transmit information. So a shadow is a lack of information. A shadow in ultrasound is a lack of sound in general. So we're losing sound here. This is a really dark shadow. This shadow is not quite as dark, not quite as hypoechoic, but it's definitely a shadow. Lack of information. You know, when I say a lack of information too, anything that's behind inside of this shadow, we cannot see because we're not receiving the information back. Okay, let's go back then to transmission. It's the opposite of shadowing. Obviously, I need to switch up my order of my slides here. This image of a cyst, which is anechoic, shows two aspects of through transmission. Posterior wall enhancement. So we have a wall, and very hard to see the wall here, but we have a wall here, wall, 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 wall. And then this part of the wall is very bright. Okay, so the wall is normally not so bright, but down here it suddenly gets very, very bright. So that's posterior wall enhancement. And this is seen in simple cysts. A simple cyst is just simply just a fluid-filled cyst with thin walls. That's simple. Those other cysts on the ovary were not simple. They were still cysts, but they were filled with blood, therefore not simple. Okay. So we have increased echogenicity here, and then we have posterior enhancement in general, or increased echoes posterior to a cystic structure. So, by the way, through transmission and posterior enhancement mean the same thing. So I should have put posterior enhancement up here as an AKA. Oh, by the way, AKA also known as, not everyone knows that. Okay, echoes posterior to the cystic structure due to lessened attenuation in the cyst. Okay, well, you don't know what that means yet, lessened attenuation. Just suffice it to say, behind certain structures, usually cysts, we have enhancement. This is brighter than tissue over here. This wall is brighter than the wall over here. Okay, so that's posterior enhancement or through transmission. Great example here, beautiful. This is actually a kidney cyst. Here's a little trick. The more anechoic the cyst, the more likely to have through transmission. So you're having, you know, very dark anechoic cyst, and look at all this tissue behind here. It's brighter than all the adjacent tissue.
Question.
Yeah.
On the Doppler screen, would it come out as PE for posterior enhancement, or is there another acronym in there in the screen for through transmission?
PE would be an acronym for it, but where are you seeing that?
My brain.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you could use PE. I don't think PE is used for anything else. So yeah, you could use that. This happens to be a solid structure. I could tell just by the picture, this happens to be a benign breast tumor. Very common type of tumor in the breast, and not cancer. But this one actually has posterior enhancement. And so most solids do not create posterior enhancement. Just so happens that these tumors do. And you can see brighter here than here. This tissue should theoretically all be the same echogenicity because this is all the same tissue. It happens to be the posterior or the anterior wall of the chest. This is more breast tissue up here, and this is chest wall. This should theoretically all be the same isoechoic. It should all be isoechoic. It's not, and that's just simply due to the through transmission. We went over shadowing already. So heterogeneous or heterogeneous. Either pronunciation is fine. I think the English say heterogeneous. It sounds a little more fancy, so I like to say heterogeneous as well. Hetero, other, different. Heterosexual, you like the opposite sex. Hetero, so tissue that is heterogeneous is neither echogenic or hypoechoic, or you could say that is echogenic and hyperechoic. In other words, now this happens to be a thyroid. There are areas all over the place that are darker, more hypoechoic, a little more echogenic, or at least compared to this tumor, or this, I don't even want to call it a tumor, this area, to this area, we can say two things. We can say this area is hypoechoic compared to this area, or we could say this area is hyperechoic as compared to here. See how they're both, and I know you're probably like, your brain's going, well, I'm having a hard time following it. Each term is compared, each term is a comparison. So you can compare A to B or B to A. And both of them, the verbiage technically works both ways. Heterogeneous tissue, okay, fail is almost always abnormal. So yes, this is definitely an abnormal thyroid, by the way. This happens to be very common. I've seen this in plenty of our students. Not today, don't worry. Chelsea, don't worry. But homogeneous, homo, the same. Homosexual, same. You like the same sex, so homo. The smooth texture of this thyroid is homogeneous. So this is all thyroid, this is left thyroid, and then there's a bridge of tissue, and this is right thyroid. And whoops. And remember, I've taught all of you now, this happens to be a transverse image, so this is anterior, posterior, right, left. If you're holding your transducer backwards, then you have this on the wrong side. And so, anyway. And I'll know, I'll walk by and I'll know if you're holding your transducer backwards. The smooth texture of this thyroid is homogeneous. And in general, homogeneous is healthy tissue. Low-level echoes, I threw this in here. This is actually a colloquial term, not an official lingo term of ultrasound. It's just more of a colloquial term that you'll hear a lot of, so I added it in. So actually this is, again, a chocolate cyst. You take this cyst out of the body and you slice it open with a knife. It will look like milk chocolate, or probably more of a dark chocolate. Anyway, happens to be a type of ovarian cyst that is filled it's actually filled with endometrial type blood. But we'll talk about that in 2 semesters. So sometimes words and phrases are not well defined. Low-level echoes is used by radiologists to describe hypoechoic structures with uniform echoes. So this is really uniform. The echoes really don't change throughout this entire cyst. It is a hypoechoic cyst, certainly not anechoic because of all the echoes. It's a really hypoechoic cyst, but it has these echoes all over it, so we call it low-level echoes. Endometrioma, chocolate cyst, the same difference, and is termed low-level echoes are often used to describe it. This is a man in a lot of pain. Here, this is a testicle. This, without going into anatomy right now, there's a testicle is, of course, somewhat oblong in shape. On the outside of the testicle is a thin, kind of a small, it's a structure. We'll just leave it at that. This structure here is way too big. It is heterogeneous. Look at all these different echogenicities and textures. So that is definitely heterogeneous or heterogeneous, whatever your preference is. And then when we put Doppler on, there is a lot of blood flow. Now, you and your current progression through the classes so far, you wouldn't necessarily know that this is too much flow, but it is. This is a ton of blood flow. And so it is hyperemic or hyperperfusion. So hyper is increased, emia is blood. So increased blood. Hyperemia, hyperperfusion, both mean the same thing. Okay, so the next few, I think there's only a few slides. And what time is it? So yeah, maybe we start doing some review today. All right. Anyway, next few slides are questions. So I'll give you some background here. This is a transverse view of a kidney. A kidney looks like, this is the right kidney. It kind of is shaped like the letter C with this open area in the middle. This is liver up here. And of course, we're measuring a cyst. Now, what are some things that we could say about this cyst? What's this echogenicity?
Is it considered echogenic?
No, not echogenic. It's the opposite of that.
Anechoic.
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 Yeah. Yes. So other than some noise along, well, I think it's noise, but it really seems, certainly in the middle here, it's anechoic. Okay, and it probably truly is anechoic. If we just turned our gain down, we would make it more anechoic. Okay, this next one is not a good example at all. In fact, I'm going to give you the next one. Through transmission, and I wrote slight down, and you can't even, the difference in echogenicity, or the brightness back here is so slight that even a seasoned tech wouldn't notice that. So one thing I didn't write down, this is a simple cyst, very thin wall, In fact, you really can't even see the wall. You go from liver to cyst, you go from kidney to cyst, and there's really no, there's just a very, very, very thin interface between the two. So a thin wall, so that's a simple cyst. So you might report anechoic cystic lesion with through transmission mid-kidney. So it's kind of like, it's not the top of the kidney or the bottom of the kidney, it's in the middle of the kidney. Anechoic cystic lesion with through transmission in mid-kidney. Okay. Ooh, this is, I'll give you a little background. This man no longer has this testicle. I guarantee you they removed this as fast as they could, and hopefully this didn't spread. So this person has cancer. This is normal testicular tissue up here, and the rest of it is cancer. So what are some things that you could say about this?
Heterogeneous.
Heterogeneous, yes. Can you see my screen where I'm seeing the double screen, or are you guys only seeing the one screen?
Yes, yes, we can. It shows the next animation, but it's short. It's small.
Yeah. Shoot. So you're supposed to be looking at my other. I'm not going to change it now, but my other screen is the full screen. Okay.
And it has some reverberations in the bottom.
Yeah. So down here, I could see where you're saying reverberation, and yeah, actually there is a tiny amount of reverberation artifact. A little bit of. Trying to see. I don't know. I don't think there's any through transmission, but
I don't see any.
yeah. How about hypoechoic? These are definitely darker than the normal ovarian testicular tissue. Definitely darker. So the tumors, all of these tumors, are hypoechoic as compared to the normal testicular tissue. And if we were to describe this, multiple hypoechoic heterogeneous lesions seen in the testicle. Okay, let's see. Oh, we have 26 slides. We do have. So I'll describe this. This is a puppy dog. Here's his nose. He's holding a tennis ball. There's his eye. No, actually, this is the liver. It's the edge. It's the edge of the liver. And it looks like we have two totally different appearing tumors. Something here and something here. So how would you describe this lesion as compared to the liver?
Hypoechoic?
Hyperechoic, yep. One hypoechoic lesion. Oh, darn it.
I can't see the back because I put y'all's faces over it so I don't cheat. So just using my notes.
I misread this. And so, okay, so now since I gave this one to you, hyperechoic lesion here, and I misread that one hypoechoic lesion here. So let's see what we're doing. Is that inferior? I would have thought that was left lobe. It's hard to know without being there. In the inferior right lobe of the liver, two lesions are seen. The smaller, more anterior lesion is hypoechoic to the liver. The larger lesion is posterior. So once again, more anterior. And this is posterior compared to this tumor. So the larger lesion is posterior and echogenic. Additionally, the larger lesion has a hypoechoic halo. Aha! doctors love hearing about halos because it actually tells them a little bit about the structure of the tumor itself. So notice how if we look at this liver tissue here, in this right here, there is a slight darkening here. And then, of course, we have the echogenic tumor. Doctors like that because what it actually shows is that this is probably a very solid tumor and it's pushing against the liver tissue, which causes some edema. Edema is fluid. Fluid tends to be darker than regular tissue. And so the increased fluid content of the liver here makes it a little bit darker. And so it creates this halo of darkness around the outside. That starts to get into a little more advanced interpretation. But, ooh, this is a fun one. Probably an ovarian cyst, but without more information, I don't know that for sure. So it's a cyst. So I already said it's a cyst. So cystic. But look at this. It has almost anechoic, but these are real echoes in here. I don't know how well you guys can see that on your screen, but I could just tell that this isn't noise. This is real echoes. So really, it's almost anechoic. You wouldn't be called out if you did call it anechoic, but there are a few echoes. So technically, it's a very hypoechoic. And then look at this. Low-level echoes on this side. You know, it's like a perfect line. What do you guys think? What do you think causes this?
Without looking at your notes?
Well, yeah, you can see what it's called, but
Yeah, but is the patient lying down? Is this a transverse image? But it says sagittal.
it is sagittal. They're most likely laying down.
So then if it's fluid, why would it not be going over the entire aspect? Because air
Yeah.
fluid levels are only when you're on your sides or sitting up.
Right. So it is a little interesting. Gravity is pulling in this direction. So you're right. I'm not 100% sure why gravity is pulling in this direction. Maybe the patient's sitting up. This is not a, see, if this were a transvaginal, then where down is very confusing. And so I could very easily say, well, this is transvaginal, the bed is down here, gravity's pulling that way. This is not a transvaginal. So I am a little confused as to why. Maybe she was standing all day long, she just laid down and it hasn't had a chance to move. But you guys understand why I say gravity is this way? This is basically probably blood or older blood that is red blood cells, white blood cells, all that stuff, is settling out. And so it settles out in a form of it's gravity dependent. And so when we use the word dependent, we're talking about gravity. So let's see, so what did I say? The next one I wrote, anechoic, so I did use the term anechoic, and low-level echo layers. So fluid level is a colloquial term that we'll use all the time when we see something like this. So you might say in the left adnexa, there is a cystic lesion with a fluid level containing a smaller cyst. Aha. A cyst within a cyst. All right, next one. This is a man, you can see written right here, a testis. This man is in pain, I guarantee you, a lot of pain. I'll give you a hint. This is a,
Hyperemic?
Testicular torsion.
yeah, hyperemic. No, not, so torsion, there's actually no flow. And that's even more painful. That's when the man is screaming. It's about as painful as it gets, torsion. Ovarian torsion and testicular torsion are both extremely painful. So yes, this is hyperemic. And yeah, these are both right testicle. They use regular color flow and power over on this side. Basically showing the same image, and you can see it's the same vessels in here. The right testicle appears homogeneous. However, Doppler shows hyperemia. Homogeneous. So if we could kind of look in the background, for the most part, the tissue, the grayscale tissue, looks pretty clean all the way through. And it's not until you put Doppler on that you realize that this guy has orchitis. In other words, inflammation of the testicle. Not comfortable. Oh, darn. All right, that's it. You share, you get this screen. Okay. So hopefully now you don't get to see the other side. So what do you think? Oh, so by the way, this is all liver. Whoops, you can't see that. What happened to my little spotlighter? Okay.
It's only available when we see both screens.
No, I have to use my other screen now. That's interesting. You know what? This tells me which screen that you can see, because I can't see it on my own screen. Interesting. Okay, so this is all liver. By the way, that's a blood vessel. We're oblique on it. See, it's not stretched out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're oblique on that vessel. We're transverse on this vessel. We're pretty much transverse on this vessel. So those are just blood vessels, no big deal.
Would it be homogeneous? Oh, whatever, however you say it.
Yeah, homogeneous or homogeneous. Yeah, it pretty much is. So it looks like I have to use this.
You said those are vessels?
Those are actually blood veins. Yeah.
Not the ducts at all?
The ducts are so small that we can't see them.
Okay.
When we get to
Unless there's stones or anything inside of them at that point?
yeah, then they get bigger. When we look at the main duct and the main branches, we could see that, but this is far away from the main branches, so they're so small that we can't see them. Maybe that little hypoechoic possibly is a duct, although it's actually probably more likely an artery. But in any case, did you guys see what I just put up there?
Yeah, it's slightly different in shading, and it's got a wall around it.
Can you believe that that is technically a tumor? Now, anyone could miss this one. This is very, very subtle. And so this is, well, I guess I would describe this one is not only texture is the same, but impedances. Oh my God, you don't know what impedances are yet, but well, this impedance is the same. Just go with it. So, oh shoot, I should have waited for you guys. Isoechoic, right? It's the same it's so much the same that it's very hard to see. Now, you put this person in CT, and this tumor, I could guarantee you, would be super obvious. And so the different modalities, MR, CT, ultrasound, nuclear magnetic, nuclear medicine, they all complement each other. Some are better than others in certain aspects. And in this particular case, CT probably would have picked this one up easily. So subtle isoechoic lesion at right dome of liver. Oh, this one's awesome. This is really awesome. So this is liver. This is all liver. This is a kidney right here.
Hypoechoic.
Yeah, so that's hypoechoic as compared to this part. Or
Heterogeneous.
I would say this is probably fairly heterogeneous as well. You gonna say something, Amy?
I was gonna say
Echogenic?
Yeah, so this part of the liver is hypoechoic to this part. This part of the liver is hyperechoic to this part. You see how you could say it either way. A is to B, B is to A. Now, I know from experience that this is healthy liver and this is unhealthy liver. So I'm more likely to say the unhealthy part is hyperechoic to the, I accidentally just hit that, is the unhealthy part of the liver is hyperechoic to the healthy part. So I would say it this part to this part, but either way is correct. A to B, B to A. This person has a geographic, we'll go ahead and call this a tumor. It's actually not a tumor, but we'll call it a geographic. It's like a map. Now, you could just call it Neapolitan, like the ice cream, you know, chocolate, vanilla. What is it, strawberry? Yeah, chocolate, vanilla, strawberry.
was that a dad joke or something?
I don't know if you can see this. Anyway, yes, it was a. All right, you got me. You got me. That was a bad joke. All right. Let's see. What's the next one? There's a hyperechoic region. Geographic pattern of hyperechogenicity, likely fatty infiltration. So most people with a fatty liver just get a fatty liver. No, the whole liver is fatty. When a liver is fatty, it tends to be more echogenic, more bright. Some people get strange patterns of fatty, and yeah. Okay. Oh, good. Carotid. Oh. Well, you're gonna have to learn this real soon anyway. I was gonna teach this. I was thinking about getting into this tomorrow. Probably not tomorrow. Saturday? Saturday. Yeah. Saturday. Because, like I said at the beginning of today's 11:20. Okay, we're good. Today's lecture. There's so many different aspects that you kind of need to learn at least a little bit all at once in order to keep this making sense. Okay, so all right, I'll just go ahead and tell you. When you get many colors up here, it's called aliasing. There's a whole, I have to at least a full day on talking to you about what that really means. But when you get a lot of colors, it's aliasing. It could be simply because your settings are incorrect, or it could be because there's a stenosis. This settings are not correct. At least they're not correct on up here. But down here, I also have the word turbulence. Not tomorrow. Tuesday, okay. I was thinking about talking about this on Tuesday, and now I definitely will be. Suffice it to say, this is turbulent flow. A couple of you today in lab, we had some waveforms, and they had the sound of kind of pleasant. And the reason it's pleasant is because one sound or basically one frequency is coming back. When you get one frequency back, you have laminar flow. When you get many frequencies, and I could tell that there are many frequencies inside of this, then it doesn't sound like, it's more like, it's almost like gurgling. You could hear all the different frequencies, and it doesn't sound as nice. This is a little bit too advanced right now, but that's okay. We'll still talk about it. We're going to come around and talk about this in detail again. So don't worry, and you're not going to be tested on this right now, because this is just today's kind of a we need to talk about a lot of it's the talk. It's the birds and the bees talk. We got to talk about a lot of different stuff today. Okay, once again, this person does have, this is truly some aliasing. You see the different color. It goes red, and then there's little bright blues in here. That shows that is truly aliasing. That's not poor use of the machine. And down here, we cannot see what's the speed. 370 centimeters per second. So 100 is average. 370 is obviously a stenosis. So this is very fast, and then there's also turbulence involved in that one. This is definitely, you could physically see a stenosis here, right? Look how wide this vessel is, and then it narrows down, and then it kind of widens out again back here. And there's a solid color here, and then we have all sorts of different colors all through here. Just want to make sure. Most of that is aliasing. I see no turbulence. See, I didn't even read the top. I was just, and so this is aliasing. There's no turbulence yet. Here's a little hint. See this open window? I'm sorry, I used the term open window. You see how it's open underneath, like there's no mess underneath. Messy, clean. So at the very beginning of this stenosis, it's actually laminar. It's pretty fast, 230 centimeters per second. So it's definitely in there, but it hasn't turned turbulent yet. This is turbulent. I could tell by looking at that. Well, it's mostly aliasing. Thank God for you guys. That is the end. So those last, I forgot those last few were there. because that's kind of got a little bit beyond what you're ready for. But we were going to talk about it on Tuesday anyway, so that's okay. Let's see if I drop this.
So really quick, pretty much what you're saying is laminar flow is just at one frequency, whereas turbulent is different frequencies going.
Yeah, and so I tell you what. It's 11.
Also, you never,
It's
also,
11. Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
I was gonna say also you never said what that empty space was.
I know. You know what? I'll go ahead and explain it. I'll go ahead and do that. Let me get back to that page. Slideshow from current slide. Share.
We can see it.
We can? Oh, okay. All right. Okay, we could do this. We kind of have to. It's 11:30. I don't want to quite let you guys go yet, but then again, I don't want to start anything new. So, okay. Okay, so far you guys know that this is peak systole. That is as fast as the blood is going to travel. It's the peak. And diastole, now this happens to be a stenosis, so it's pretty fast. This is as slow as the blood is going to travel. But that isn't 100% true. There is some variability. Not every single blood cell is traveling exactly the same speed. And so the variability is shown here. Okay, I like this one better. That point right there is as fast as any blood cells are traveling. But at that point, at that same exact moment in time, some of them are traveling this fast. Some of them are traveling this fast, some of them are traveling this fast. This white area really shows the from the fastest to the slowest. So the whole mean of blood cells at that point. At this point, end diastole, that's when things are going the slowest, but this has variability as well. Now, in the case of here, the blood cells are, yeah, there's some variability, but there are no blood cells traveling this slow. In other words, let's see, that's 40. There are no blood cells at all traveling at 30 centimeters per second. Let's just do right here an end diastole. Nothing at 30 centimeters per second. Once you get up to 40, and this line right here is 40. Once you get up to 40, some blood cells are traveling that fast, and probably 60. So between 40 and 60, which is some variability. But remember, every point on this, or every area on this is associated with a speed. So over here, let's do right here, nothing's traveling at 30, nothing traveling at 40, nothing at 50. Then we get up into, let's say, 70, 80, 90, 100, 120. There is blood traveling at different rates of speed throughout here. And remember, when we did our laminar flow, and this is laminar flow is not the same velocity from wall to center to wall. Along the wall, it travels slower. In the middle, it travels faster. So you can imagine that the peak is in dead center in the middle, and the slowest flow at this point in time is along the wall. But it's laminar because we call this an open window. Now, if I go right way back to this guy, and I say peak systole here, the fastest blood is 600 centimeters per second here. At that very moment in time, because time is along this axis, at that very moment in time, there's 500. Some red blood cells are traveling 500 centimeters per second, 400, 300, 200, 100, 50, 10, 5. Every imaginable speed is represented. And so we are totally filled in here. There's no velocity not represented. Same thing over here. End diastole is, well, what is it? 223, but some red blood cells are traveling at 100, 75, 50, 10. That kind of, where I'm looking. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, and so we know this is turbulent because all velocities are represented. This is laminar because only a small range of velocities are represented, and nothing down here is represented because no blood is traveling that slow. And of course, no blood's traveling that fast, but this is the window. This is an open window. This sounds beautiful. And then this sounds ugly. Okay, cool. So, oops, where am I going? Anyway, I've got to get in the habit of having you guys stay a little bit longer, but 11:36 is close enough. Test on Wednesday. I literally took one of the questions out and put it into that announcement because sometimes students feel blindsided. They have no idea what to expect. So I at least gave you one good question out of 40. So you can find that. Due mostly to technical issues, there's a couple of things that I really wanted to cover a little better. I'll review on either Monday or Tuesday of next week. We'll do a little bit of review, and I'll try to touch on things that I feel like I wanted to hit a little bit better. Everything in the book is fair game, guys. Everything in the book is fair game. So know your questions and all that. And it'll probably be during class time. I really hate doing that because we have so much to learn, and I don't like to take away from class. And so that's Wednesday. Half of you should be doing your homework today, and once again, it's just a short little test. I have to go back into Blackboard and change it into an assignment. Right now, it's being graded as a test. I'll switch it into an assignment. Okay, that's it, I think.
You're referring to the Edelman, the Green Book, correct?
Yes, pretty much Edelman. I have barely had a chance. I'm just now getting that other book for the first time. It wasn't in print before, so I really haven't had a chance to go through it. I will go through it though, because I'm sure sometimes there's just better ways of saying things. Let's see.